everyone. Thanks for joining us today on Deborah Cobelt Live and our Little Italy podcast. We are thrilled to welcome my friend, Cristina Ferrare. Cristina is a New York Times best-selling author. She's a supermodel. Gosh, I don't even know. Your title is this long. You're a TV host. You're a cancer survivor. You're a mom. You're a wife. You're a grandma. And you just told me before we went on the air, a great grandma as well. We've got a lot to talk about. You've written 7 books. Thank you so much for joining us. And you look fabulous. You look absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's so great to talk to you again, because when we get together, that's all we do is talk, and we have too much fun. And there's so much that we share. So I love it. Thank you for asking.
There really is so much that we share, right? Our work, as journalists. And also we were at the Influencers of Midlife conference recently. You were our keynote speaker, where you gave the most moving, beautiful talk that I may have ever even had or been in front of at a conference. It was beautiful and it was very warm. And that's just who you are, right? Whatever it is that you do, whatever you brought to your TV shows, it even comes through the camera in your modeling work. So,
may I say something? Since it's coming through the camera and I'm not used to doing podcast, am I looking at you or do I look at myself so I make sure I'm talking to the audience as well? So
I don't know. I tend to, it doesn't matter because, it's a small screen. I look at yourself, right? Or look at me, whatever one.
I'll look I'll look at myself, because this way I feel like I can connect with you and the people who are listening.
Yeah. Okay. I sometimes like to go way back, right? Because you are an Italian-American girl born in Ohio. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about your parents and growing up Italian?
Well, my mother married my father when she was 14 years old. My dad was 24. He was stationed in Italy during the war, and she was a war bride. He brought her, they married, and they married. She was a child when she came here. I always used to tell my dad when he was still alive, he'd probably be arrested today if he tried doing that sort of thing. But it was a different time. But anyway, his hometown was Cleveland, Ohio, and that's where he settled with my mother in Cleveland. And when she was 17, she had me, first of 3 children.
Wow. So you really grew up together, you and mom.
Yes. I always said my children, my parents were children raising children. So she had a lot to learn, and we learned as we grew. It was a wonderful, warm Italian family filled with nothing but food and music and neighbors and fun and friends. And that's what my childhood was like in Cleveland, except in the winter, cold. But it was a wonderful, Midwestern upbringing.
Yeah. Now, Dad was a butcher, right? I mean, tell us about that, because you really come from that working class stock. And then all of a sudden you end up in Los Angeles because, look at you. You're one of the most beautiful people ever. And at 15, you just sort of like came through the camera when you walked in a room. I can only imagine. But talk to me a little bit about Dad and, his work.
My father was a butcher, and he, it's a trade that I don't think really exists like it did back then. But he came from a working class family as well. And my mother was a stay-at-home mom. And when we were in school, she would wait tables to try to, help out with the family finances. But basically, she was a stay-at-home mom, and she loved to cook. My nona eventually moved in with us when we were there, and that's when the life of the familia, it all grew when my grandmother came there, because she would cook, and I became fascinated with cooking because I loved to eat. I loved the smells of the kitchen, the joy that it brought when we'd all get together and cook, and I could hear the music playing. My father would play the Tony Bennett albums, and my grandmother would always put on opera. So I was raised with the anticipation of, the people that were coming over, the food that was cooking, setting the table, sitting down, and there was always noise. I loved the noise because it was a happy noise. It was very cheery and fun. And that's how I was raised. And I brought that attitude or a tradition to my own family when I had children, because my kids are the same way. They now love to cook. I used to make Thanksgiving every year. As our family grew, it was up to 50 people. And 2 years ago, my daughters, who are now adults, they fired me.
Oh, wow. So you You must have taught them very well. And we're going to
Well,
be
they
talking
fired me.
about, yeah, they fired you. But that's what I mean. They taught you well because you taught them well,
Yeah,
I meant to say,
yeah.
because now they're in the kitchen, right? But I mean, and we're going to be talking about your cookbooks and all of your books, which you have written 7. And
Yeah.
this one here, by the way, okay, so I don't have a headache, was on the New York Times bestseller list, which is such an incredible book. So, here you are, a kid growing up, an Italian kid, enjoying family and cooking and all that comes with it. And you were 14 or 15, I believe, and you moved to LA. Tell us the story of being discovered as a model.
Well, I was in school at the time, and I came home from school one afternoon feeling extremely rejected because my cooking teacher gave me an F on my cooking exam. And I was really pissed off that she did that because I said, you don't understand. I have been trained by the best chefs in the world, my nona and my mother, and we would always argue in class. So I came home, I wasn't feeling well, I didn't want to talk to anybody, but my mother was sitting in the kitchen with a woman that she just met, and they were having their espresso, and she introduced me to her friend, and her friend said to her, your daughter's really pretty. Do you think she would be interested in modeling, or have you ever thought about helping her to model? She can make really good money. And when I heard that, I popped right out of my depression. And I said, because she had me at really good money, I said, oh, okay, well, sure, why not? So the next day, I was sitting in front of Nina Blanchard. The friend arranged to meet Nina Blanchard, who was the top agent in LA at the time, with
Yeah.
with the ties to the New York agency, the Ford agency, which was the #1 agency in the world. So I met with Nina. She signed me on the spot. My mother said I can only work 2 days a week because education was very important to her. But at that time, if 15 years old, I was making $30 an hour, which is a lot of money today. And $30 an hour, that was pretty good for 15 years old. And I said, this is great. I'm going to save up all my money the 2 times I worked a week, and at the end of the year, I'm going to open my own restaurant. That's how nice that was. But I was so excited. But that put the seeds of the entrepreneurial spirit that I've always had since I was a child. So it all worked out. That was the beginning. When I talked to you in Los Angeles, I'm sorry, in Las Vegas, we talked about how everyone is a book. You're a book. Tony behind the camera. You're Tony. My Tony. We're all books. And we all have chapters in our life. And so you start out each chapter, and you go through your life, and your book never ends until nothing ever. You just keep on going. And I just kept that entrepreneurial spirit inside of me. And I went through all the chapters of my life. Things happen, of course, along the way, the good and the bad. But that's how I've always lived my life. And I always moved forward, and always in a positive direction.
I'm a big believer that who we were as kids is who we are as adults. What were you like in grade school? I'd love to hear about it.
I was very quiet and shy. I was bullied when I was in school by the boys and the girls. I went to a parochial school, and and I loved school. I loved learning, but I had a learning disability, and unfortunately, the teachers that were there, nothing was really known about that, and they label you. They put you in groups. There's like the A group, the B group, and then they put us the dummies.
I remember that.
I
remember that.
Yeah.
You were with the dummies.
Yeah, I was with like the C group, and so I had like the instead of the A, I had a C. Like I was stupid, or the S. I was stupid, and that had a big effect on me as well. But it also put a fire in my belly that I'm going to rise above this, and not to be better than them, or not to revenge or anything, but just it put that fire in my belly that I was going to do something about this. It took me a long time to realize, like the writing. I would always get an F on my paper because
Oh,
at the time they would take out little point. If you didn't have the correct punctuation, or if you didn't put a capital at the front of the letter, they would take points off. And I would always end up with a D or an F. And it hurt my spirit. And I didn't write for a very long time. And thank God for
oh.
the computers and spell check, because I would, and I used to love to tell stories, but I would always get an F in my story. So that kind of stopped me for a long time from writing. But as I got more secure and more happier in my life, I was able to start writing, and I found out that I could write really well, and I love writing. If you ask me what I want to do for the rest of my life, I want to live in a cabin. I want to be able to eat whatever it is I want to eat. I'm going to sit there with an espresso and a cigarette, and I don't smoke, just because. And I want to just write. I don't want to see anybody. I just want to write all day long. That's how much I love it. And no, I don't smoke.
Yeah, that's interesting you said that. I'm at a point in my life where I sort of want to give it all up and go write as well, somewhere
Yeah.
by the beach,
Yes.
somewhere by the beach. So I'll meet you there.
Yes.
We'll have
Let's
little,
go to Italy. Yes.
okay. It's done.
Positano.
We'll have to, yeah, absolutely. This is beautiful. Where's family from? Where are they all from in Italy? Mom and dad?
My mother's from La Spezia, which is in the northern part of Italy. My grandmother was from Pisa. My grandfather Liguria, and my dad was from Naples. So I go all over the boot. I have the best of both worlds when it comes to the cuisine and the traditions of it. So that's where they were from. And so we were raised, my sister and brother and I were raised on Italian tradition, and also eating. I didn't know it at the time, but we were Mediterranean eaters, because my grandmother, would make the sauces from the fresh tomatoes, and we would have the grilled fish and vegetables. So I was raised, when people think about Italian food, they think, oh, you eat pizza, you eat mortadella, salami, which we did, but it wasn't a part of the mainstay of our diet. And from the very early on, I was always aware of food and how it affected your body, even as a child. Because I remember, you remember the Kool-Aid? Remember Kool-Aid in that little picture?
I remember that little guy who would walk. My mother would never let us have that in the house. Never.
Well,
you too?
No, what happened was I convinced her one day, because I loved the commercials and I loved that little jar. We got the little red one and the little blue one, but then I noticed, all the sugar they put into it to make it sweet, and there was a lot of sugar in there. But I remember after I drank it, it made me feel sick, and I thought and as young as I was saying, there has to be something about this. Maybe it's the color, maybe it's the sugar. So that also laid another seed in my brain about food and nutrition. And my grandmother worked at Stouffer's, which was a very high-end restaurant there, and they had a dietitian. And I was always in the kitchen with the dietitian asking her questions. And she taught me about food and the effects of food and the chemistry and the whole thing. And I was fascinated with it. And of course, then I wrote the book Food for Thought, which I saw you held up a few minutes ago, which is it became #1 on Amazon for brain health. And that was due to all the research that I did when my mother died of Alzheimer's. And my friend Maria Shriver asked me if when I write the book, if I would donate some of the proceeds to Alzheimer's, and she would be more than happy to endorse it. And of course, having her endorsement meant everything, because it meant more people were going to read it and understand how both she runs the women's Alzheimer's movement, and what she's done is changed the face of Alzheimer's in the research through her what she does. And then I wanted to contribute in some way too. I did the book. She gave me an endorsement, and it's a book I'm extremely proud of. It took me 3 years to finish.
Wow.
3 years.
Well, tell me what you learned, actually, since you brought up that book in particular, Food for Thought. And a shout out to Maria and the wonderful work that she does with Alzheimer's research. And I really do mean that. She's changed the entire dialogue about it.
Yes.
But what did you learn? Is there a big takeaway, for our brains, something that, try and put more of this in your diet, try and do more of that?
Yes, it's very important. But what I really wanted to emphasize is that you can eat anything you want to eat. It depends on how you prepare it and the ingredients that you use. And you have to cut out 2 things from your diet, only 2: processed sugar and hydrogenated oils. And hydrogenated oils are oils that solidify at room temperature. So things like butter or coconut oil and things like that. So you have to, those 2 things. So in my book, I show you how all the recipes that are in the book, everything that I use in it, in the beginning of the book, I say, this is what it is, this is what I use, this is why you have it. It's there's if I'm doing a salad, I say the tomatoes do this, the lettuce does that, and how it nourishes your body. You can have French fries. It depends on how you cook it. What are you looking at there? That's the quinoa. You should go to the dessert section. You can even have dessert. I made a chocolate mousse that tastes like chocolate.
Hold on.
Okay.
Oh no, keep going. I'll find the dessert.
That tastes like chocolate mousse, but
oh my gosh! I opened.
Oh, there it is. There's a chocolate mousse, and I made it with a sweet potato. A sweet potato is shaped like this, and it's also shaped like your pancreas. So that particular food, the sweet potato, actually feeds your pancreas. If I make a salad and I use an avocado, I put the avocado in it. The avocado is shaped like a woman's uterus. If you think about it, when you open it up, it looks like a uterus. What does it have in the middle? It has a seed. The avocado feeds your uterus. And I go all through all the vegetables that I use, and there are foods that actually feed and nourish your bodies. God provided every food on earth there is to feed whatever it is that needs to be nourished and have vitamins and minerals in it. So I took it and I put it all together and made delicious recipes from it, including there's pastas and soups and salad dressings and desserts that you can eat, and without hurting your body. So the most important thing for me right now too is Alzheimer's. And if you look at, I eat walnuts every day, at least 6 of them. If you look at a walnut, it looks like a brain. There's a right hemisphere and a left hemisphere. So I do that for my brain. For my heart, I use a tomato, because tomatoes have lycopene in it. And if you slice it in half and you look at it open, it looks like the chamber of a heart. So that's good for you. So the 3 things that is a must for health is your brain, your heart, and your gut. So if you can keep those healthy and happy, then you could live, I'm not making any claims here, but you'll live a happy, long life, hopefully without any diseases. But since in a world where the environment, there's so many and hereditary things that could happen as well. But you can help your body along. Since I've been eating healthy, I also eat organic. And if I find something that I love to eat, like a peach, and it's not organic, I will pass it up and get something else. And the little trick I learned in the store is there's a sticker on everything. If it's organic and it starts with 9, it's fine. 9 is fine. You can take it and eat it. It's organic. And if it starts with the 4, out the door. I don't take it. And I can tell now from eating organically all these years, the minute, when you go to a restaurant, sometimes they don't have organic food. I can taste immediately when something isn't organic. There's just a different taste to the fruit or the salad or the meat or whatever. So that's what I do. And that's
amazing. What about for people who are trying to lose weight? I guess stick to the same principle, right? Make sure that you don't have the hydrogenated oils and the sugars and the everything. Sometimes very difficult in our society as Americans, because no matter, it's very, a lot of us go out to eat, and I often wonder, oh gosh, what's in this? What do you do if you're, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stop you, but
no, please, we're Italian. Wait. We're Italian. This is what we do.
Okay. What do I do? Well, first of all, when I go to a restaurant, the one thing that truly annoys me is the portions. They're this big. Your stomach is as big as your hand. You're right. All right. But they give you portions that are so large. And when you go to a Chinese restaurant or Italian restaurant, I don't know what kind of oils that they're using, or I don't, when they put the food in front of you and there's so much of it and you eat. I mean, it only takes like 15 minutes for your brain to tell your stomach that you're satiated. You don't need to eat anymore. But if you train yourself slowly and I don't go on a diet. I don't believe on diets. I do believe
Mm.
in drinking lots of water. I drink, about 2 quarters. Here, I got my bottle. I'm going to get it. I already drank my first one this morning. I drink about 2, maybe 3 of these every day throughout the day because it, flushes you out and everything. I already drank mine. Well, okay. So it's like if I have to get up and pee in the middle of this, you'll understand. So
It's all family here.
yeah. So, but I love cooking and I love feeding people, and I love it when I bring my food to the table and people can smell it when they come into the house, and the anticipation of and sitting down. Food to me is very sensual as well. It's a sensual experience, sitting down and dining and eating your food and loving what you're eating and not feeling sick afterwards. It's just you eat too much and then the sugars go crazy and stuff. Then you have your high and then you have your low and then you have your headache. I'm done with that. I haven't done that in a really long time. I want to,
Right.
I like the way I feel. Yeah.
Wait, say it again.
I like the way I feel, so.
Yeah. Well, also in your career, right? Especially when you're working in television, you're running around, running about. It's very difficult. As a reporter who was, on the street for years, I'm just grabbing my food, eating it, chowing it down. You get home, you're hungry. It's just not a healthy way to, put food in your body. So you're right. Eventually you've got to get to that point where you take time. We were at an event this past weekend, my husband and I, and it was a 5-course meal at an Italian restaurant in downtown. Actually, it was at Drago Centro. And it was, and it was, in fact, I was honored there. So I was very excited about that. And it was a 5-course meal over like 4 hours. And my husband, who is Polish, doesn't quite eat the same way that I grew up, said, "Oh my goodness." And I said, "Yes, this is the way we're supposed to be doing it. You grow up in an Italian household and dinner lasts for hours. Out come the chestnuts. I mean, just right. Am I right about that?"
11 o'clock, the coffee, there were leftovers from dinner would come out again, and then they'd start playing cards, and then you would got the food again, and it was like, oh my God, no, stop. But you said it's 4 hours. 4 hours. After the first course, you're pretty okay. The second course, you're full. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to eat anymore.
That's true, actually. That is true. After the second course, my husband said, "I'm stuffed," and the portions were small. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
And then 4 hours. But what we've learned to do now is when we eat and we have dinner, then we'll sit around and we'll talk. But I take the food away, and then nobody's really hungry 2 hours later. It's like go home, go home, and but you be able to talk, not to eat for 4 hours. It's I don't know. That's not my thing. I went to I guess it was up in Napa, where I went to the French Laundry restaurant. We started dinner at 11. They started dinner with. We were still there at 4. I tell you, at 2:30, I wanted to kill myself. Not that it wasn't delicious. It was wonderful. But then we got up and left quite full, but had an incredible cuisine. That was a mouthful. Anyway, but we went home, and Tony and I realized that we had an event to go to at 8 o'clock, which was at an Italian restaurant. I said,
"Oh my Lord.
Tell me now." I said, "I can't." I said, it just... the whole thing about overeating is not
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
I will actually blow up, and I can feel it. But we'll talk about that another time. I want to talk about, there's so much to talk about. I need about 4 hours with you, kind of like over a long dinner conversation. I want to go back to LA. You're that gorgeous model signed by Nina Blanchard.
Blanchard, right.
And everybody knows her. I mean, especially back in the day, she was the agent over at Ford. You're right. And here you are. The family moved to LA, right?
We all moved to LA after I met Nina. I would say within 3 weeks, she got me a contract with Max Factor. Now, Max Factor Cosmetics. I was one of the first models to ever be signed to a contract for a brand. At that time, it really wasn't heard of. Today, it's like, there are all these celebrities and models who are now spokespersons for it. But I was one of the first. And I remember taking the pictures for them. They paid me really well. which, so I could start my own bank account and do, my mom made me save my money and stuff like that. But I would go into the drugstores and I would see my pictures everywhere. And I was looking at them, but I wanted to know how they were going to be displayed, how the products were brought in, what did they have in the products, how do you take this and make a business out of it? Me, as young as I was like 15 years old. I instead of looking at my picture and go, oh, goody, I'm on it, I wanted to know everything there was about the company itself and Max Factor and the history, and then how you get these things into the store and how you sell them. And so all these things I was asking my parents, they didn't know, they didn't have any of it. And Nina was very helpful in helping me understand all that. She said, why don't you she said, I got a call from the photographers today. They said, what is it with this kid? All she's doing, we want to just take her picture and send her home. She's just, how do you make this? And how do you sell it? And who do you sell it to? And, do kids buy it? Do mothers buy it? So I started very young back then.
Yeah. That's the entrepreneurial brain, whether you were, cooking food or whether you were, posing for a magazine cover. How many magazine covers? And we might have some of those covers. If my engineer has them, we can put them up. How many magazine covers have you been on?
Really don't know. I think there's over 50, but I've never counted. I never counted them.
Here's something funny. When I was a kid, you're right, Cristina Ferrare. When you would be on the cover, I'd be at the grocery store with my mother. She'd be, in the little grocery cart. She'd say, she's Italian. Look at this. And she was so proud that an Italian girl was on the cover of a magazine. And our relatives would be talking about this because, there was a lot of discrimination back then, and I grew up in New Jersey. And to have an Italian girl on the cover of these magazines was actually the talk of our dinner table. I need you to know that. So, and they were so proud and so happy. So you sort of paved the way for so many and made so many Italian Americans and Italians very, very proud, Cristina.
It's good because I've always been a proud Italian, always. But it was tough because I had dark hair and I had a chest. Everybody was, rail thin and no booties and blonde hair. And so I was like the dark one. But at that time, I was very lucky. I was able to work a lot and I made a lot of friends and I worked with the best photographers in the world, the best. Traveled the world. It was great.
Your husband, your John DeLorean. Can we talk a little bit about that? Your ex-husband. So sorry about that. Yeah. Your ex-husband. Yeah. Because that's another one that was in the news. You also talked about it at the Influencers of Midlife. How did you meet? And if, we don't have to go through the whole long story, but how did you meet? And then how did it end? Because it was a very difficult time for you because you had to reinvent yourself, right? And you had children and it was just really, really a tough time.
I met John. I was doing a charity show we were raising money for, I think it was for the Italian consulate, if I remember.
Oh.
It's so funny you should say that. And it was it was held at Gucci in Beverly Hills. And we did the fashion show. And then afterwards, John happened to be there with his friend Roger Penske. I don't know if you know who Penske.
Yes, Roger, of course.
So after the show, we met. And I thought, what a, nice looking gentleman. But he was like 25 years older than I was, and met Roger, whatever. And besides, I was dating a man at the time. I was serious about him. And unfortunately, like a month later, he died in a plane crash. And so I remember John called me out of the blue to say, I'm so sorry to hear about your friend who passed away, was killed. And he said, I know this is really too soon, but I come in and out of LA a lot. And if one of these times, if you're interested, I'm going to keep calling. And if you're interested, please, I'd love to take you to lunch. And so that's how it started. So, but while we were, having lunch and or dinner, he would always talk about his little boy, Zachary, who he adopted. And he talked about him in such a loving and fun way about this child and how he would love to have more children. And one thing led to another. And then when I finally met Zachary, I fell totally in love with him, totally. And we ended up a year later getting married, and I adopted Zachary as well. And yesterday was Zachary's birthday. He was 49 years old.
Oh, happy birthday, Zachary.
Zachary,
happy
yes.
birthday.
Yes.
Oh,
So, yeah.
And then, but that was, quite how long were you married? And then, what transpired? Because, everyone knows, of course, the DeLorean car. And I remember seeing photos, beautiful photos of you out and about with your ex-husband. And then I remember what happened toward the end, if you're comfortable talking about that a little bit. Because, just to give a little inspiration to people out there who've gone through incredible times and have had to reinvent themselves, because you really, really had to go through that reinvention process.
Well, we were married for 11 years, and we moved to New York. And because he was president of General Motors at the time, and then he quit to start his own car company, and that made a lot of headlines. And we just became like the darlings of New York or whatever. I was at the top of my career. He was doing his thing. And we were, like I said, 11 years. And I'm trying to think, like, when Catherine was born. Oh, Catherine was born. We had a daughter together. 6 years later, after John and I married, we had Catherine. So we raised a family in New York. They went to school. We had a lovely life. We had a home in New Jersey, and then we would go out every weekend to be there. We had a very heady lifestyle at that time. Something that only happens in fairy tales, which I don't believe in, but evidently I went through one. But fairy tales never end very well. So, because they say happily ever after, but nobody ever tells you what happens after happily ever after. One evening, this was 11 years into the marriage. We were having dinner, and I received a phone call from, and John was always traveling, trying to raise money for his company. I received a phone call from someone from the Los Angeles Times to say, we need a quote from you about your husband being arrested for cocaine distribution. And I went, excuse me, well, this came out of like nowhere. I'm having dinner with the kids, and the next thing they're saying my husband was arrested for cocaine. So I said, I'm going to have to call you back, because I had no idea what he was talking about. So I turned on the news, and sure enough, it was on the news. But simultaneously, my phone started ringing. So I knew this was serious, because it was ring, 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 ring. And it said John was arrested. And I said, okay. So kids didn't know about it. They were too young. And I called a friend to come with me to Los Angeles, because I didn't want to travel by myself. And he did. He picked me up, and I took the red eye out to LA. And when I got to when I came outside of the jetway there was so much press there. I couldn't breathe. And I couldn't understand, because I had no idea what had happened, because I was a friend of John's was there who saw me, and he was this huge man, and he just kind of pushed everybody out of the way, and went home. And I had to be there for John's arraignment. Long story short, he was arraigned. We went through the whole trial, but in the interim, the government, after he was arrested, they froze all of our assets. I couldn't get into any of my bank accounts to get any money to even buy groceries. They froze our credit cards, and for me, the worst for me was overnight, all of my endorsements and things that I was doing in modeling was taken away. Everything. Wow. And I said, I don't understand. I'm not accused of anything. And besides, John is innocent before, is innocent before. What's that saying? You're innocent until proven guilty, right? So
innocent until proven guilty. I always flip flop things.
Yeah.
I would have ended up saying guilty until proven innocent. Like, no.
Yeah, right. I know. Yes. So, so everything was taken away from me. Everything, and it was.
But you picked up, and you came to Los Angeles, right?
Well, I had to, because the head of the board of directors of the building we were living in our co-op that we actually owned, said, "Oh, you have to leave." They kicked us out of our building. They kicked us. So I had no home, no money, no. So I flew to LA to be with my parents, and also the trial was there. So we moved in with my parents into a 2-bedroom apartment. I remember the kids, they'd sleep on the floor, and we were and John and I would sleep in our twin bed. We're both very large people, so that was interesting. So anyway, and we made it, as my parents always taught me, and they did. Everything was still, for the kids' sake, about fun and positivity, and we're going to get
right.
through God, and we're going to be fine. And so the kids, at that time, were okay, because I had a big loving family that put their arms around the kids and helped them through it.
That's great.
Yeah, we went through the trial, but during the trial I learned a lot about who this man really was, and things that I didn't know, or things that perhaps I didn't want to see or didn't want to pick up on. But I realized the whole marriage was built on basically lies, not on my part, but him to me, and who he was and what he was doing and his dealings and all of that. So it was a story of betrayal as well. I decided I was going to move out to Los Angeles. I took kids. I moved in with my mother. I filed for divorce. And John, before I did that, though, John was acquitted on all charges. There is no love lost between the two of us. That what happened. I mean, I forgave him. He's still the father of my children. I loved him, and I just don't stop loving anybody. I mean, he played a very important part in my life. But I just knew I had to move on for my own sake, because I had to find a way to support my family. I had 2 kids. Where am I going to go? I'm going to ask my parents to move in with my mommy and daddy. No, couldn't do that. So
yeah. So how did you get work again? How did that even happen? Because then you end up on TV in Los Angeles, right?
So because of all the PR and stuff like that. It happened. Oh, while I was going through this, I had a book that came out, and I was contractually obligated to do the book tour. So I ended up on the Phil Donahue show, and we did an hour about. I said to him, the only thing if you want to ask me, you can't ask anything about John. You can't. So he opens up the show, and he takes his microphone, and he walks down, and he puts a microphone to his face, and he says out loud, "John DeLorean's guilty, and he's been feeding cocaine to your children." And I just sat there, and I thought, okay, I could either get up and leave, or I can sit here and face the music. So I sat there. Okay, and I sat there, and he asked me questions. I said, I'll answer this first block that we're doing before you go to commercial. You can ask me any questions you want about John. And so I talked about it from the wife's point of view, the mother's point of view with the children, and I would say there are certain things I'm not allowed to talk about because of a gag order. I can't. The audience was very sympathetic. And one of the people who happened to be watching the show that day was a gentleman from one of the O&O stations in Los Angeles. And he was running the station at the time. And he at that particular time was replacing the woman who was hosting the morning show, AM Los Angeles, there. And he was looking for a host. And he said, "That's her. That's it."
Oh.
Now, I never knew anything about hosting or being, I never did that. And when I went to LA, the woman called me and said, "We're interested in, would you come in to talk to us, because we're interested in," his name was Tom Van Amberg. He was the president of the company. "He's interested in meeting with you." So I took a meeting with him, and we got along well, and I got the job. And because of that job, I was able to rent a home, a nice little house in Brentwood. I was able to put my kids in school. I put them into a private school because the paparazzi people were still bothering them. So they were protected there. So they went there. Thank God I could afford it, And so I was able to become financially on my feet again doing that.
Yeah. And then from there, of course, this is how you met your current husband, Tony. I mean, the
Yes.
love of your life, truly the love of your life. You two are adorable together. Absolutely. How many years have you been married?
It'll be 40, totally,
Wow.
wait a minute, no, 39 years. I'm almost, but we've been together 40 years. We'll be married 39.
Wow. Honestly, you behave like newlyweds. You're just
I,
adorable together. And
and we fight like
yeah,
a sister. So,
yeah, I got you there.
until we make up.
Right? No, I got you there. So you met Tony because I
Uh-huh.
believe I mean, he was an executive, right? If you want to just briefly tell us that story, because I sort of want to talk to people about the evolution of you, about
Right.
the evolution of the comeback, about the evolution of 7 books and a bestseller. Because this book really made headlines, as did what's the one that Oprah completely went bonkers for? A Big Bowl of Love,
Well, love.
right?
She
But
did her own TV show from that book.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and all of that happened because of what transpired. You met Tony. You ended up on network television. One of my favorite shows, actually, Home and Family.
Oh, well, no, that
Um,
was for the Hallmark Channel. Home and Family was Hallmark Channel. Uh,
I'm getting my networks mixed up. Sorry, everybody.
there's
But
just so many. Sometimes I get them mixed up as well. But I have to go back to Tony. I have to go back to New York in my New York days. Still married to John at the time.
mm-hmm.
Um, at that time, they were looking for someone in their 8:30 to 9 o'clock block that at the end, which is more, it's not the news anymore, it's more like family, fashion, beauty, that sort of thing, and they were looking
Right.
for uh like a model type. And so I
Well, that would be you, right?
yeah,
With
that
just
would be
a model type, a
right, yeah,
supermodel
but
type.
even they say
Oh my,
a model who could talk, and I'm going, it's like, excuse me, because most of the women that I know who are, they are so smart, and they've have done fantastic. They invest their money, they start businesses, they so whenever I hear, they don't do that anymore because these women are strong. But anyhow, I am, oh, I'm waiting. I'm going to meet him. It is the dead of winter. It's freezing outside. Into ABC in New York to meet Tony Thermopoulos, because in order to be approved to be on the show, you had to have the approval of the network, and Tony was at the time the president of the network. So I'm waiting in the
wow.
lobby. It's like 6:30, and I have to meet John, I think, around 7:30 for dinner, whatever. And I'm sitting there shivering, in the cold, and I'm pacing back and forth. And then finally somebody comes down to bring me up and go, Mr. Thermopoulos, I'll see you now. One of those things. It's like I get in the elevator and I go in the office, and he's still not in there. I waited another 10 minutes and he comes in. This I was so mad that I couldn't see anything. He comes in.
That was your that's your first of the many fights, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yes. Picks up his phone to say something, and I'm just looking at him. He puts his phone down, doesn't even apologize for being late. And I was just, the interview did not go well. I did not like him. He did not like me. I did not get the job.
oh.
That's fine. So years later, whatever, he remembers when ABC, because still he still had a long arm with all the other O and O's all around the country. He had to know what was going on. So I popped up back again, and he just, at that point, he just, and I guess he followed what was going on in the news and stuff. I thought it was strange that they would ask me to do the Good Morning America at the time, because the main thing you want is you can't be the focal point if you're doing news, and I said,
Right.
yeah, and I said, what? I said, this is weird, because I am the news. I am the news of the wife of an alleged cocaine dealer. But it's always about ratings, right? Ratings. So anyway, did not like him, did not get the job. Years later, I am now back in LA, and I have the opportunity to do this. They approved it. It was just one of those things. And then
It,
the
wow.
whole other Thermopoulos story is a whole other story itself for another time. But it is a epic love story. He is the love of my life, and we have two. Actually, we have a blended family of 7. He had 3 children from another marriage. I had 2. And then we had two. And our daughters are Alexandra and Ariana. Ariana is our youngest. She's going to have a baby any day now. And not any baby. I'm sorry. She's only 5 months pregnant. Please God, not till March. Yes. So she is, and then Alexandra too, who's 36 years old, and
Yeah.
7 grandchildren, and 1 great grandchild, and then the other one on the way.
Yeah. We have to talk about, home and family. We have to talk about some of these books that are outstanding. I'd love to talk about this one. Okay. So I don't have a headache. This was incredible. The New York Times bestseller list. Will you tell our audience what this is about and how it was inspired? Because you were on the air, right? And what were you talking about? Your sex life or sex drive or whatever?
I wasn't talking about my sex life.
No.
We had a woman gynecologist on who was talking about women going through menopause. And at that time, nobody talked about menopause, or what the effects, what happens to you at night, how all of the things that happen to your hormones, your personality, all that. So she came on to talk about women losing their sex drive when they go through menopause. And I was going through something very similar. And I remember the most important thing, the lesson I learned from that is to talk to your spouse, to talk to him and to tell him what's going on, because Tony thought I wasn't attracted to him anymore. I thought, I didn't want him. The idea of having sex was just like, and this was like, I mean, he's Greek, I'm Italian. That's all, you have a wonderful time. So all the wonderful times just dwindled. So when I said, oh my God, that's me. And so everybody went, oh my God, there she goes. Because I always would blurt out things, personal things. I could hear in my ear, my producer go, oh, there she goes again. But what happened was we were live on the air, and we had people who were able to email us while we were on the air with questions or comments. So what happened was they had so many people calling, it blew out whatever it blows out. It blew out all the faxes and everything, but in the city that we were in, I mean, that's how many calls that came in that day. So I asked for her if we could have this woman come back, because I wanted to go to, she's the gynecologist. So I went to talk to her. And as she was talking to me, I realized that there's so much information out here that people don't know. And I have a platform where I'll be able to help people. So I decided to do the research. I wrote the book. Took me about a year to do it, but I kept having people on, other doctors from out of town, specialists that would come on to talk about this, because I thought it was really important. When the book came out, someone from the Oprah show called me and said, I brought this book to the attention of Oprah, and she wants you to come on the show to talk about it. And I went, okay.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So long story short, I went on the show. I went to get into the car that they sent me to go back to the airport after the show was over, because the show was live from 9 to 10. 10:30, right. I get to the airport. I get to, my seat, whatever. Tony calls me and said, by the way, you're okay, so I don't have a headache, just shot to #1 on Amazon. I said, what?
Wow.
I said, that's the power of the O. So yeah, and it became a New York Times bestseller from my thing with Oprah. So we became friends. And then when I wrote the Big Bowl of Love, and I cooked with her, for her, and we'd spent Thanksgivings together, several of them, and she loved but there it is. And she, when I sent her the galleys for it, she said, this is great. I want you to come on my show and we'll talk about this too. So again, I did that. And she called me up to her office after the show was over. And she said, I love the idea of this book. And she said, I'm starting my own network. And she said, I would like for you to come on and have your own cooking show. I went, okay. Thinking, wow, it's like I was screaming on the inside. It was like, are you kidding me right now? Yeah, so we did. Yeah.
You know what, Cristina, you're such a loving person. So I think when people meet you and they see the hard work you put into everything, into your cookbooks, into your TV shows, into your relationships, that's why doors, even if one closes or two or three, about five or six more will open up for you because you create that environment. I really do mean that. And that's very true about you. And anyone watching this, that's the truth. And that's why I think it's a great lesson there. You know, you just don't give up. Just like that kid who was in grade school, you thought to yourself, all right, I'm going to find a way out of this. You don't give up. It's very important to try and keep that inner belief that we all have, that, you know, that you had in yourself. And I think that's why you've been so resilient and kept going. You know, there's only a couple more things I really want to go through if we have the
Can I just
time.
say something real quick? Can I say something real quick? You
Oh,
said something
please.
very important. When one door closes, another one opens. That is
Yeah.
true for everything. Because when you fail
Yeah.
at something, which I believe that failure is only it's disguised is opportunity disguised as disappointment. And what it is that when the door closes, another one automatically opens up because life goes on, and it just does. It opens up with new opportunities. Then it's up to you to take. It's going to happen anyway because that's life. You're going to take that opportunity, or I reject it, or move forward with it, and make something happen until the next chapter. And then that's how life goes. Because if you look at who you were at 20, 25 to 30, 30 to 40, they're all different chapters and different things that happen to you. So this chapter of my life at 73 years old has been the best because I'm more confident. I know who I am. I'm not afraid to speak up and speak out. I'm not afraid of failure because, you know, it's not failure. It's another opportunity. And I will never stop. I will never stop until God says, you need to come home and tell me some of your stories. You know, one of those things. And I
Yeah.
will, but
Yeah.
right.
Because of, you know, based on that, you know, remember what happened with, of course you remember what happened. It happened to you. Home and family, right?
Oh,
And you talked about age. You talked about being 73. I want to bring that up briefly. I also want to bring up your cancer diagnosis. And then I want to bring up what's happening to you now, because you've got all kinds of career opportunities that are exploding for you at
who knew?
73 years
Who
of
knew?
age.
Who knew?
So those are the three topics I want to
Okay.
try and get to before I have to let you go. But briefly, right, with home and family, that was a surprise too. And by that I mean the end of it.
Yes, I went to work. I was on the show for 6 years. I'd come home on a Friday, call my husband on the phone, which I always do on the way home to talk to him. And he said, you have to, he said, I knew something was wrong. So anyway, I come home just from his voice, and he said, look, I just spoke to Woody. Woody was the producer, executive producer of the show, and said that today was your last day on the show, and that not to come in on Monday, and that they've packed up your trailer and they'll be shipping all your clothes back over the weekend. And it was like, wait, what? What are you saying to me? And so I couldn't believe. I was in shock. It was like, I couldn't hear anything because everything was burning, my ears, my heart, my throat.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't understand that. The woman who was one of the executives there called and said that, but Tony said to me, they want to meet you tomorrow morning at this place for breakfast. And I went like, and I thought I would be able to talk them into taking me back, or they made a mistake or something. So we got there, and they were both sitting there. They could not look at me in the eye, and I'm just staring at them. And I said, why are you doing this? And he looks at me straight in the eye and he goes, because you're old. And I went, excuse me? Pardon me? I said, first of all, you cannot say that to me. Major lawsuit, right? And I turned to I said, right? And she said, yes, but that's not me.
I understand.
And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, we want to bring in a younger demographic. I said, for the Hallmark Channel? I said, do you realize that your demographic is 50 to death? I said, young people aren't going to sit around for 2 hours a day watching how to sew a button onto a freaking coat. You know, I was so mad. You know? And I said, what is wrong with you? I said, the ratings are high. We're doing well. people love the show. I don't understand this. Like, why? So anyway, long story short, I was fired. The show itself stayed on for maybe a year and a half, and then it was off the air. I mean, the ratings went down immediately. And I was also told that the people who I worked with for 6 years, who I loved these people. I loved my job. I loved going to work every day. No longer could contact me, or their jobs would be in jeopardy.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
I thought that was weird. Anyway, or if my name was mentioned on the, they had a website. If my name was mentioned or asked about me, they would take me down. They would take my name down, so nobody could contact me. Now, even on the social media, I didn't understand what I did. I have no idea. Well, it affected what I did. I don't know what I did.
Yeah, you got old, like all of us.
I thought,
right. You got old, but
they kept my male counterpart. It's okay. But anyway, so anyhow, what happened? So now I cried every day, all day for almost. I could not get over it. It's like when I had to finally see somebody, and they said, Cristina, it's not like you had a death in a family where you lose somebody. You lost 175 people all at once. Your rhythm, your cadence, and your day, everything was ripped out from under you. And all of a sudden, it's different. You didn't know what to do. You don't know what to do with your new normal. And so she really helped me understand that, because I was mourning the death of not only the place that I love to be, but also the people that I truly cared about. And they were all gone out of my life. And luckily, I have maybe about 8 of them that I'm still very close to. But those are the people that matter. So I'm happy I have that relationship. But no, they all mattered. But I'm glad that they did, because I love them. Anyhow, so okay, where am I in this? So I cried and cried and cried. And then, long story short, I started feeling really awful. I mean, just terrible. And I said to Tony, there's something wrong with me. We went, I had to give a speech somewhere down in Santa Barbara. I did it. And on the way home, I said to Tony, I couldn't eat lunch. The food made me sick. I said, I don't feel very well. And I said, when I get home, I want to go to bed. So I slept the whole way home. And as I started to go up the stairs, I had to grab the handrail because I got so disoriented and dizzy. The room was spinning. And I said, and he looked at me, he said, I'm taking you to the hospital. So I went to the hospital. Long story short, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a cancer of the plasma of the blood. And I was told I had 2 years to live. And I'm listening to another, like, wait, what? Was another wait, what moment? And I was very oddly calm, because you would think when somebody says you have cancer, you would start to panic. But I didn't. I didn't. I just felt a sense of calm, thinking, okay, this is another thing that I have to tackle, and I'll get over it. I just have to figure out.
Wow.
So, I remember when a doctor who was a friend of ours at the hospital came in to tell me that I had multiple myeloma. But before he did, he walked over to Tony and took his hand, and he started to tear up. And then Tony started to tear up. And I said, you two need to stop crying. I said, what? I said, am I going to die? And so the doctor said, well, I said, what do you mean, well? So the other doctor who was there told me, you have about 2 to 4 years to live. And I went, no. So I did all my due diligence. I read everything I could. They said they were going to send me home and start the process on Thursday. I said, no, I'm staying here tonight. You're getting me a room, and we're starting the process tomorrow. I stayed up all night reading everything. And the last thing he said, stay off the internet, of course, which I didn't. I read everything. And when they came back the next morning, I said, I listened to everybody and all the protocols and everything that I had to go through. I'm going, I said, okay, so this is what we're doing, guys. I said, and ladies, I'm having a stem cell. That's what I want. And this is why. And anyway, we opted on a stem cell, but before I had to have it, I had to go through probably 8 or 9 months of getting ready for the stem cell.
Oh, wow.
And then actually going into the hospital for 4 days to extract the stem cells and then putting it back in. It was an ordeal. It took me about a year and a half after the stem cell to get my sea legs back again, to start feeling like a normal person. But it's been 7 years now, and I'm still in remission. And they took enough stem cells where they froze them, and I could have another one. But they've made such great progress with this
Yeah.
that I probably don't need to have another stem cell. I could just go into new protocols, but I'm not touching anything now because nothing's broken. So why, don't try to fix
No. No, and you're healthy and incredibly resilient. You and I went walking not long ago, and you were outpacing me. So you're doing just great. But once again, let's talk about age, right? I think now being a certain age, and I don't care if you're over 30, if you're over 60, or if you're over 80 or even 90, I just think there are no more age rules. As the admin, it's the admin, I believe, who really put that us up against that. It's like, oh, you're too old. Gosh, I think there used to be a time, right, during Marilyn Monroe's day, or if you were somewhere in your 30s, you were considered older. So, and now look, you've got a tremendous campaign going, right? It just doesn't end for you. I mean, you're going to be doing this until we're going to have another discussion, like you're 73, when you're 103. You're just going to keep going. Talk to us about your new campaign, which was just launched. Would you please?
Yes, I will. But it started with, but when I went to speak in Las Vegas about the midlife summit for women over 50, now that's all you see now are women over 50 out in the workforce and what they're doing in all walks of life. And people are beginning to recognize and accept the value that we have no matter what age we are. I mean, we met doctors there that were in their 80s, and with doing research on things and starting businesses. And I learned so much. And I didn't want to do it in the beginning because I don't like public speaking. It makes me so nervous. And my husband says, you have a story to tell. You get out and you talk about it because it's important. And it's important to support your other women who are out there trying to do the same. I went, okay, and I went, but it was the best thing I've ever done. Okay.
Yeah.
Those women that were there just blew me. And I came away with a nice friend, a couple nice friends. So it's really nice. But, and also with Robin too, who put on the wonderful, Robin Lamont, she did that. She put on that wonderful summit. Anyway, and I said, when I got a call a couple of months ago from an agency in New York called Iconic Focus Models. And they called and they said, we would like to bring you home. They have models there from the 70s and 80s. And also they have children, they have young models, they have adult models, and even a men's thing. But they have a certain category there for women who are over a certain age. And we're all fabulous. All of us are established. All of us have been on the covers of major magazines. And so they said, we would like to sign you with our agency. And I didn't even hesitate for a second to think about, let me see what kind of age. I just knew. I knew instinctively it was the right thing. And I just said, yes. I didn't even tell Tony. I just said, yes, absolutely. Let's do this. And,
well, go ahead.
I just had my first cover on a Paris magazine with a big editorial inside. So
the photos are so stunning. You posted them right on your Instagram.
I did post them on my Instagram, and that's Cristina Cooks. If anybody wants to go on my Instagram, it's Cristina Cooks,
and that's CRISTINA.
Yes, CRIS. Yeah, there's no
H in there.
Thank
but
you.
I have to tell you, please go on Cristina's Instagram because those photos are so elegant and stunning. And, after all you've been through, Cristina, and gosh, you have more than like 9 lives, right? You keep going, whether it's health, whether it's work, whether it's family. It's amazing. So now you're embarking on that next endeavor, right? I mean, are there other projects that they have lined up for you, or what is next? If there is a next, you've got, family, which is a lot. I have 3 boys and it keeps me busy all day. And you've got, a gigantic family. Yeah.
what's next is that, since food is, I'm not going to give up my thing about food. I won't. And so I'm writing a series of ebooks that I'm going to do.
Oh,
And I'm calling it I'm calling it My Model Kitchen. Okay, so I have a series of books, and I'm doing a book on pasta, a book on soups, books on salads, books. They're ebooks. You buy them for $10, $15. I'm going to donate some of it to, I'm going to pick like for the Multiple Myeloma Foundation to keep moving forward. You have to face forward all the time. So I'm going to be doing that. And the agency hasn't officially announced me yet, which they'll do. I just finished a whole series of new photographs that they're going to put up on. When you go to Cristina Ferrare on Iconic, you'll see a body of work along with the new pictures and what I look like now. They'll make their huge announcement. When they do, it goes out to all the magazines and makeup companies and branding companies all over the world. So they'll do it. And they said, we got one shot at this, so we got to make it right. So they still haven't made it yet. I have another shoot to do, and then they'll put it together, and hopefully I'll get reaction from that.
Bravo, Cristina Ferrare. You're just amazing. I got to ask one question. What's your favorite color, Cristina?
Red.
I'm wearing a red ring.
Oh, red
I looked
ring.
I looked at my wardrobe. I have some red, right? And I have like a cute little red denim jacket that's actually a little small for me. So I didn't wear it, but I found red. So here you go.
Oh, you're so funny.
Tell me why red is your favorite color, and then we're going to let you
go. Well, I accent my house in red too. If you can see, I have my little roses back there. I think it's a powerful color, and it has meaning for people who are resilient and just keep running. The red, because it keeps them, the power in them going. The color to the eye also makes you see it, and when you wear it, it makes you feel alive, or it makes you feel good. It has it's like pink too, has that same kind of feeling. Because it's also soothing. But when I wear red, it's because I want to feel like I'm empowered. And if I'm wearing white or pink, I'm more, laid back. I'm not as forceful as I am when I'm wearing gentle colors. But it makes me happy. And when I see them, like, pops of red, like in my garden and stuff, it excites me. That's simple explanation, but that's how I feel.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Robin Lamonte of Influencers of Midlife, our friend, and all the women there that we connected with a few weeks ago. And any parting words you want to tell our audience, where they can find you, how they can pick up your books, anything, would you please?
Yes, you could find me on Cristina Cooks. That's CRISTINA, Cristina Cooks. And I'm rebuilding my website right now. I'm going to be calling it My Model Kitchen, where you'll be able to, I'm really bad at doing stuff like that. So I have to work with somebody to help me set it up properly, where I can have the modeling thing and the cooking thing. I want to homogenize everything, to make everything about what my world is and what it is that I do. So that's what I'm working on. But right now, and as soon as I'm finished with you, then I'm going to be focusing on finishing my pasta book for My Model Kitchen, which I'm really excited to show everybody. And
that's very exciting.
And looking forward to the holidays. I'm so excited about that.
You too? I am too. I love the holidays so much. All of my kids finally are in one place. So that's something, right? I'm looking forward to. And as Italian mamas, we know how that feels, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Gosh, I want to.
Yeah. Are you on away?
Yeah. I want to thank you.
Oh.
I keep stepping on you, or we were stepping on each other. So I just want.
We talk over each other. That's what we do.
No, we do. And we talk with our hands, and we talk with each other over each other. But I want to thank you so much. You took a lot of time out today to talk about your life, with your parents, your work, your modeling, your TV work, your cancer diagnosis, and each one, as you talked about, you got through it, and you really are just such a delightful, beautiful person. I'm so happy for you. Thank you. May you have continued good health, and I know you will, just by watching you out walk me. And and I look forward to getting together with you very, very
I
soon,
do too.
Christina.
I know. We got to go to our little place, our little Hugo place to get our turmeric drinks, right?
Yeah,
Remember?
I'll
Yeah,
text you.
yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
was beautiful. Thank you for taking me there. You had your little shots of
Yeah.
turmeric, and I had that great little smoothie drink. And if you approve of it, I
Yeah.
approve of it. So
Yes.
there you go. So please, everyone, I suppose that we can still continue to pick up all of your books, right,
Oh,
on
yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah. Maybe on Amazon. I'm sure a lot of them are a little old, like 20. I don't know if they're still on there, but I think that they are. I think you can still get them. That food for
You can,
thought is my baby. My baby. Yeah.
yeah, well, you can because I was Googling, all about the books and are they still available? And they are still out there. So they're in print. So people go to Amazon, Google Cristina Ferrare, and her books will pop up. So more of that and perhaps some great books to purchase for the holidays. So anyway, thank you, Christina, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you to
everybody
your,
for watching.
yeah, and thanks to your husband, Tony, who I know helped set up the shot this
And
morning.
you're
He's such a
Tony over
love.
there helping you too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Send a
Yeah. So
message.
thank you. Oh, right. My engineer, Tony. Yeah. Thank you. And everybody, have a wonderful week. I'm Deborah Zara Cobelt. I really appreciate you joining us for our special edition of our Little Italy podcast and also Deborah Cobelt Live. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook, and then we post promos from our shows on Instagram. And our show is also on all audio podcast platforms, whether it's iHeartRadio, Apple, just anywhere you get your audio podcasts, plug in my name and you'll find our interview with Cristina Ferrare. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you and much love to you, Christina.